tuned in to the Monday Night Carlo Sports and Entertainment Sportscast. And now, without further ado, I give to you the one and only Carlo.
Edition of Monday Night Carlo, because tonight we're going to talk Ghostbusters, but we're not just going to talk Ghostbusters, we're going to talk about the brand new documentary called Cleaning Up the Town, the feature-length documentary based upon Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, created by the brother and sister tag team of Anthony and Claire Bueno, and they're joining me right now. Guys, how you doing?
Oh, very well, thanks, Carl. Thanks for having us. How you doing?
No problem, guys. I'm very, very excited. Not only am I excited to see this, I mean, I checked out the trailer, I'd say only about 2 or 3 weeks ago did I know that you guys were creating this. But when I saw it, just the attention to detail of this caught my eye. But how did you guys, tell us a little bit about you to begin with, but tell us just how you guys started this project.
It goes way, way back. So let's see. So we've sort of like been working in the film industry for about 10, sort of like 11 years, or in the film industry media. And it was I'd done film school and Claire was doing presenting.
Okay. And
I got involved on a project on an American werewolf in London called Beware the Moon, which is on the Blu-ray. And that was like a retro making. Well, it is a retro making of. And that was kind of our introduction to this genre, I suppose, of fan docs, I suppose. And while we were doing that, it was just like, and you always sort of thinking, what's the next thing? What's the next one we're going to do? So, and it was just, for me, it was Ghostbusters because I love it. And like Paul, who was doing that, the werewolf doc, it wasn't really kind of his genre, but I really wanted to have a crack at doing Ghostbusters. So, when we were about to interview John Landis, I sort of like got permission to sort of like say, look, if I think it's appropriate, do you mind me sort of like mentioning it to John about doing Ghostbusters and whether or not he thinks Dan Aykroyd would be interested.
Yeah.
We had the right occasion popped up. So I asked John and sort of like said, do you think Dan would be interested in a Ghostbusters documentary? He's like, oh, sure. Yeah, I could get you Danny. And that was basically it. And that was in 2007, somewhere 2007. So that was kind of like the genesis of it. And then, got back and Claire and I just started like bashing out different like ideas and kind of writing the thing. And then it was from 2008 that we sent out invites and really made a start on it.
That is very interesting. I mean, just tell us a little bit about your love for this film and what made you decide on Ghostbusters itself.
It's just my favorite film of all time. When I first saw it, I'm old enough to have seen it in the cinemas, not any of the reruns either, the original. It just really grabbed me. I mean, I was, when I was that age, I was quite a susceptible age, I suppose. But I really just loved it. And as a kid, you just love it for the film that it is. And kids can be very kind of forgiving. There's many films you revisit and you think, crikey Moses, what on earth? Why did I watch this up 10 times? It's a dreadful film. But Ghostbusters isn't like that. Certainly as I went to film school and you start analysing films, you just think, God, it's just such a really, really well-made film. It's so well constructed. It, every bit moves on. It strikes kind of every beat. And even now, just even as an adult, and I will still sit and watch it and enjoy it, even though I know so much now about the behind the scenes, I can still sit and enjoy it and for exactly what it is. I just think for me, it's just like a perfect example of what you go to the cinema for. You just want to go a bit of escapism, have a great time, a bit of a laugh, and just be kind of wowed. And that's exactly what it did. And it still does, actually, even through the making of and the interviews we have, we're still kind of wowed by how this thing was done.
I think it's made it more magical, actually, for us working on the making of.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell us a bit about your side of it, Claire.
My side, well, I mean, I'm not the avid fan like Anthony is. It was a film that I was allowed to go and see as a teenager with my friends for the first time without adult supervision. So it's very much ingrained in my mind. I know the friends I was out with and where I was sitting in the cinema and what I was wearing, and there's the library ghost making me jump out of my skin, but making me laugh at the same time for being so foolish to jump, And so I remember. So for me, my love of the film isn't in the same way as Anthony. But what I found was that I've like sort of touched upon a minute ago, is that I actually have gained a greater respect for the movie and the craft of the film after having spoken to everybody that's obviously worked in front of camera with the actors, and then all the behind the scenes, that obviously starting with Ivan, the director, but then all the special effects crews, and I think that the dedication and commitment to their craft made me see this film in a whole new light, and I'm quite happy that I think we've both got a different kind of perspective to the film, because I'm probably a little more objective about it, whereas Anthony, it influenced you, didn't it, Anthony, in so many other ways. Your love of the paranormal and all of those kind of things. It sparked off an interest for so many different reasons, and filmmaking, really, didn't it, Anthony?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the first things that like Claire and I did were kind of supernatural based, and Most Haunted was really big at the time.
Right.
It goes to show like the era that it's taken us to get this documentary done. So what was big at the time? It's like Chesney Hawkes.
I think for me with this film, I mean, when this film came out, I was little. I mean, I was around 6 years old. My brother was the first guy that introduced me to this film, because we used to have movie nights when my parents owned their own business. So they're away a lot, and he used to give me these movie nights when I was a kid. And it was one of the first films I saw, of this nature. And I just remember it, even though it was a comedy, it was kind of scary at the same time,
Absolutely, and it does stay with you. I mean, I think that's the testament to the superb filmmaking, from the story to how it's been made, is that it has lasted the test of time.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about this with, about other films. There's been, with the Star Wars films, there's been so many different incarnations of, George Lucas re-editing and doing director's cuts and stuff like that have kept the interest of the fans alive for years and years and years. Those embers sort of still have glowed for the film, but there's always new incarnations of it. There's never been any other incarnations of the Ghostbusters films until obviously we've got the new one coming out now. But, that just says, it's just a testament to just what great story, great acting, great filmmaking, that it's still in people's hearts 30 years later, really.
Oh, it's an amazing film. So let's move on just a little bit to the interview side. Who was your very first interview, and did you come across anyone that was kind of apprehensive to get involved at all?
Well, our first was good old Ernie Hudson.
Nice.
He's a treasure. He's just genuinely lovely fellow, and we've all become like good friends with Ernie since. And he was the first to accept when we first sent out those emails. It was his rep the first to come back, and he just so happened he was going to be in the UK at a convention.
Oh, very cool.
So we tried to kind of like sort times out, but it was just working with agents, and it can be difficult. And it was over a weekend as well that he was there, so it was difficult to kind of know whether or not anything was going to happen. So we just kind of bit the bullet,
right,
and went down there on the Saturday, and as you can, I was I'd met him before briefly. Because I'd helped a friend out. I never knew about conventions until a couple of years prior to us doing this, and it was actually going to the conventions where I actually started the werewolf thing. But I met Ernie once at one of those, I wasn't kind of queuing up. I was looking after this friend of mine had a replica car, and Ernie would come over and start chatting while I was like stood there. So I was just, you're trying to be cool.
I remember young when you came back.
So it was like that when we went there, because it's like, well, one, will he remember, and two, will he? You just don't. Yeah, you just don't know really. And he was just very nice, and we organised to do the interview the following day, and that was it. And we were talking with him for about maybe about 3 or so hours. I think 3 or 4 hours seemed struck in my head before we even got round to the interview, because we were just talking. And then we did the interview, which was great, which was very thorough, and then we were chatting again afterwards. Just a really, really lovely fella, and has stuck by us with different aspects of things that we've tried to do over the years. So we still see him like when we go over to the States and stuff.
Very cool.
So he was our first apprehensive.
I think I suppose the ones the obvious ones that come to mind are probably people like Sigourney Weaver, who we didn't know until after the fact that, you know, she'd obviously spoken to Ivan, who we'd interviewed previously, to check that, you know, we were the real deal and not just sort of time wasters really. So even though we weren't conscious of that in the beginning, but afterwards, you know, when we found out that obviously different people had asked if we were all right or not, then you realise obviously people don't just instantly say yes. And I think that's important for us as well as filmmakers and for anybody, that, you know, when things come easy, it has no value. And in making this film and taking 8 years as it has, this film has such a great value to us, and you know, and how we make it and how it's going to be presented in the end, the finished product, is incredibly important. But I think the fact that yes, there have been people that have done a little bit of background checking on us first, I think that's important actually, because it does mean that when they sit down in front of you, this means it's even more meaningful.
Definitely. So let's talk about Ivan himself. Was he all up for you kind of being involved with the project?
I think he probably thought we were mad.
And he probably still does. No, he was fun, because I mean, the danger with doing what we were doing, and it's not, I don't think it's quite as bad now as it was back then, but there was the apprehension of this is a licensed product. This is what I've said a few times.
Yeah,
it's licensed. This is owned by Sony or Columbia or whatever way you want to look at it, and it's even owned by him and Dan and Bill and Harold as well at the time. But so there's always that kind of danger that you're kind of sticking your neck out to do this, and you just, you know, you're going to get some kind of court order or things like that. And but the thing is, it's like, but things have changed so much, especially the past few years. So we don't quite live in the same world that we used to, where everything is so strict. Now that, you know, YouTube videos are being made constantly, and it's difficult to keep a hold on kind of like stuff like this. So, and I still am now surprised that he agreed to the interview, to be honest, because it was just one of those things. You just, like, you go back there, say, blimey, he's kind of, he's up for it, and you have to go out to, oh God, where he was. I don't think it's where they are now, but it's like
Santa Barbara. It was
Santa Barbara, yeah,
right.
Lovely place, really. But it's like this really old Hollywood place. You got this big long driveway, and then you got the big doors that opened up, and it was just like this is quite surreal. And then you meet them, you feel very intimidated, because at the end of the day, he's Ivan Reitman, and he's made classics and stuff. So, but he was great. You know, we did, and you know, and if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have got people like Sigourney and stuff. So we spent a good amount of time sort of like talking to him, and you know, we had a bit of a chat afterwards, and essentially kind of wishing us luck, because he knows that it's very hard.
Yes.
Sort of like get a recognition, and even especially official recognition by the studio itself. And but again, you know, time, you know, the fact that this thing has taken so long, you know, people have got to know us and know that we're trusted. So, you know, he's, as far as I know, he's happy with what we're doing.
It must be really weird, though. Sorry, Claire.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it must be really weird going from kind of a fanboy aspect of watching these films to actually going to interview these guys. There must have been times when you kind of pinching yourself, you know. So
we spent we're bruised from head to foot from pinching ourselves, you know, in a non-self-harm sort of way. It really, honestly, we've literally, it's been breathtaking, and yeah, we've literally had to pinch ourselves throughout the whole journey, because, you know, the one specific story that always stands out for me is, you know, one morning we're in Industrial Light and Magic in George Lucas's boardroom, and in the afternoon we're in Pixar across the San Francisco Bridge in Pixar, and it's like, how did two kids that grew up in Torquay end up here doing this? But we had a dream, we got the tools and the talent, pardon the pun, and you know, we put them together to make this film. But it's been a whole journey, hasn't it, Ant, of pinching ourselves.
I mean, you know, whenever you do anything like this, I mean, even when we were doing like the premiere scene stuff, when we do red carpets and things, and you just, I mean, sometimes, you know, you do get a little bit jaded with some of it, but every now and again there are people that are stood in front of you, they're like, crikey Moses, and mainly people from your childhood, and I think that's the thing. Yeah, well, you know, this is it.
You had a moment, didn't you, the other week?
Had a few moments. Which one was that?
It was Hateful Eight.
Oh, of course, yeah, because we covered Hateful Eight, and there's Kurt Russell stood right in front of us.
Nice.
And I'm thinking, you know, my mouth's dry, and I'm not even, and I'm just holding the camera, and I'm quite happy with that, my position. But I'm just thinking, oh, this is something else. This is Kurt Russell, and he doesn't, you know, you don't really see him that much.
No.
So it's amazing, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I've been doing the doc with lots of them, and lots of times of kind of having to keep the inner child from erupting, and I'm going to be calm. But the worst one in my mind, there was two particularly, was Dan Aykroyd.
The Terror Dog.
Oh, that was another one, but that's a different kind of situation. But it kind of, in meeting Dan Aykroyd for the first time.
Oh yeah.
It was just like it was just like I was saying, Claire, you might have to do the talking, because I was fine until I actually saw him. We were trying to organise this interview for years, and he came over to do a bottle signing, and I thought, this is the only way we're going to get to see him and talk to him face to face.
Yes.
And see what the situation is. And then I was fine until literally we were outside the window and looking, and you see him sat there, and it's like, okay, right, this is the fella that I've, you know, admired from this age, through his supernatural stuff, through Ghostbusters, like Trading Places, and all that kind of thing.
So many.
Strip, and it's just like, this is. So it was a bit of a weird, but it was great when we spoke to him, and it was fine, and that was sort of like the thing that eventually opened up the door, so we finally did get that interview. But blimey already, that was nerve wracking, and Al Ramis was very nerving, but he was such a lovely fella.
Legend. That
he just completely put you at ease.
Yeah. Totally.
Tell me more about Dan Aykroyd first. I mean, just let me know that he was the person, Anthony, that you thought he was going to be.
Not putting words in your mouth, but don't ruin my childhood.
you know what I meant.
Warning you there.
Yes, because Claire's childhood and my childhood are slightly different.
Yeah.
Don't
talk about age differences.
You know, he really was. He was very. I just remind you, he's a very big fella. He's got very big hands, and
he's tall, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very tall.
He's 6'2", something like that.
But you know how big he is? I was quite, for somebody, but he didn't have like an overbearing presence though. He had a very friendly presence, and like him and John Landis, they kind of remind me that they're very similar. But John Landis has got a similar kind of energy, but he's very focused. And whereas Dan's, I found, you can see he's already sort of like kind of planning what else he's going to be doing sort of later on in the day or later on in the week. You can see he's got that kind of, but he's just got this whirlwind of stuff going around in his head. And he was great. I mean, we met him that day, and he was lovely. And then after I got over that, and we was able to sort things out with his assistants, and then we went over to the States and we interviewed him in the House of Blues, which I always wanted to go to. So I was quite chuffed that it was literally killing two birds with one stone. And he was great. And you know, we just sat down and he rattled off, you know, everything that we wanted to ask. And even when we ran out of questions, he was like, no, you carry on, because we only had a certain amount of time, and he just wanted to use the time as constructively as possible. So. He was great, you know. He was
generous.
Yeah, very generous, and it's just like, you know, and hopefully we'll get to see him again at some point further down the line when this is completed, and hopefully he likes what we do. But yeah, he was, you know, and that's, I think Yeah, because you're on a good point, because that's the one thing you worry about the most.
Yeah.
Is when you invest so much time into, like, in anything, especially something that's fan-based to a certain degree. And you think, but what if they are not particularly nice and they're actually a bunch of tossers? and it's like, how am I going to deal with that? And thankfully, we've through
There's
anybody.
nobody that like that, has there?
No, none of them. Just it's just really kind of hard to put into words. Just the most amazing and generous people, the effects crew and people like that, and working on things like Star Wars and Ghostbusters and Poltergeist and all those things. Just the most interesting people, but they're just so down to earth, and they're just happy to talk about this stuff because it's just amazing.
Well, because they love film as much as we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're as passionate and committed to film as much as any of us are, really. And I think that definitely came across, didn't it, Ant?
Yeah, definitely.
You're tuned into Monday Night Carlo, the sports pop culture podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher Radio. So why not hit that subscribe button now? Monday Night Carlo, where pop culture fun lives.
No, Claire, just to verify for me, Anthony's not just saying that, is he? He's not just saying that.
Oh no, he's not, honestly. And I have to when the time and the date was booked for us to go to do the interview. I think it was like four days.
Right.
Before. It was about 4 days before that we knew that we were going to interview him. And literally for 4 days we were, can I say the word, crapping ourselves. That the phone was going to go, and he was going to have to cancel because of a scheduling conflict or whatever. And we were sat in where was it, Ant? We were overlooking the sea, like Malibu or somewhere like that.
No, it was kind of like when you go along Pacific Coast Highway, there's a nice kind of like restaurant just by the beach, and I think it's still LA. I think it's like the far end of like Santa Monica, as if you're heading towards like Santa Barbara. And they do a great seared tuna.
Yeah.
Salad.
Nice.
And so we were sat there eating this food, and with the phone goes, and it's his PA.
Right.
And I was just like, oh no, and our hearts sunk. We're like, oh God, this isn't going to happen, is it? Oh no. And then she's like, oh hello, we're just calling to find out if you're still available. And we're like, yeah. So we did. So we went there, and the old expression is, isn't it? Don't meet your heroes. But
yes.
In fact, he was very nice, but very generous. Gave us some signed books of that it was his grandfather.
It was his grandfather. His dad wrote this book. I think it's called The History of. I've got it somewhere. The History of Ghosts.
Okay.
That his dad wrote, and it's and it helped me with the doc, because it's that thorough kind of insight into the family history, and essentially the book's all about his grandfather. Fascinating, a really interesting book. And I like contacted them because it's like they've got some great pictures in there. It's like we're really, it'd be amazing to get some of these photos, which they kindly did. It's great, and it really helped inform me. So there's a lot of stuff online and things, but it's kind of nice to get these things out of the horse's mouth. So like the first section of the doc is just Dan Aykroyd talking about his grandfather and his family, and essentially where that genesis of Ghostbusters came from. So which the last time we were out there, it was like, right, we've got to go to Lilydale, because that's his grandfather used to go to this place called Lilydale, which is in Buffalo, New York, up by the borders of Canada.
Right.
Lovely part of the world, and we went up there, and it was still kind of winter, so it was all covered in snow, and so it was just great. It's like I just really wanted to get some shots from this place I don't think it's changed much over the past 100 or so years, and it was fascinating, and it's just and that's what I love about this. It's that journey of discovery and learning, and it's
definitely,
it isn't just like deconstructing things. It's just finding out like the passion that drives the people to create all this stuff, and the kind of ingenuity that has to be sprung, and it's incredible what people have to kind of do.
And I think that sort of just touching back to Dan Aykroyd as well is that it's so much clearer to find as well the secret of the success, or one of the secrets of the success of Ghostbusters, right, is his utter belief in the paranormal and the afterlife.
Yes.
And once you see that in person, it's easy for you to to believe in it all and believe in the project even more. And I do believe that because this story is rooted in truth, in that he does believe in the paranormal, and it's not make believe. Everybody will invest in it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So
I do, yeah.
I think by meeting him, that exemplified that for us as well, didn't it, Ant?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's just one of those things. There's nothing worse than when you do meet your heroes and they don't live up to expectations, or you find that these things that you've just got such a passion for actually had a very materialistic, a motivation, and that is quite. And we have been in situations like that before, to be honest, and it was just like, oh, that's a bit disappointing, because you're expecting some very insightful, and obviously he wants to create a film, and he wants to create a successful film, and you obviously don't want to create a flop, so there's obviously going to be financial reward in some respects, but when you know that there is all that, like, that drive and passion and belief behind it, it's just very nice to be and to be around. It's very intoxicating, I have to say.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you that I come across your trailer on Kickstarter, and one thing I found with your trailer is just the production value and the way that it feels on par with the movies, because there are a lot of fanboys out there to this movie, and let me tell you, they'll pick holes in things that you wouldn't believe had holes. But I can tell you this, that I'm a massive fan, as well as my brother's a massive fan of this film, and just from the trailer itself, it literally sent tingles down my spine just from watching it, because of the music and the placement, and it looks like it's going to be something special, guys.
Well, thank you.
That's what we're hoping, and we have to sort of like thank Eastwood Alan for doing that, because he edited that trailer.
Right.
I did the trailer that I did was like years ago now. So actually says on there like 2 years in the making. So that's how long ago it was. And I had a lot of fun kind of like cutting that together. And that's kind of what I do anyway. I'm an editor, and so I've got like a very, very kind of rough assembly of like the footage. But like Eastwood, and like with many others that have sort of like helped us along this journey, and like Anthony Zart, who did the logo, who's been with us pretty much from the beginning. When he did that logo, it was just like, oh my God, that's I was just like, that looks exactly, I mean, it wasn't at all what I thought, because I had something completely different in mind. It really wasn't as good. And Anthony did this thing, was very simple. It's like, God, yeah, we're just like, God, our documentary's actually got a logo. It doesn't just got like a poster or a picture. We've got a logo, which was quite something. But then Eastwood's like had been contacting me for like a year or so, and expressed interest in helping. And I'd seen what he'd done, which was fantastic. But I think we always wanted to be in a situation where, if we start taking on a few people, then we need to be able to pay them, basically, and not sort of like some kind of freebie, which is the point of Kickstarter. But it was just like, I sort of like said, right, okay, right, well, we're going to do this, and we ended up talking and getting on well. And it's just like, well, I tell you what, let me send some footage up, and do what you can with it. And he actually edited the Fright Night making of You're So Cool, Bruce. He edited that trailer, so that was good to see in one respect, to kind of to see the skill sets. And so I sent him up stuff on a hard drive, and he said, I'd really like to do a trailer. I was like, yeah, go for it. It's like there's these few bits that are kind of edited at the beginning that I'd like to be like properly polished and have them look as they could be, but go for your life with the trailer. It's sort of like, show us what you like, show us what you've done, and then give you a bit of feedback or whatever. And it was just, literally, I had tears in my eyes watching it. It was just like, oh my God. It was just, I still now, I'm still quite, it's like exactly what you said, you get tingles. And this is, I mean, I know the footage quite well now. It's the first time seeing footage that I hadn't edited. And everyone sort of like says they're left really wanting to see the documentary, and that's exactly how I felt watching it. I was just like, just the things he did, I was just like, God, that's really good. And I was just like, even if I had the skills in After Effects, which I don't, but if I did, I still wouldn't have been able to like pull off what Eastwood's done. So, he's done a great job. And like we've got like Jamie, who's going to be doing all the music, and she's got some great ideas and things she's already working on now to give the documentary like a flavour, because we don't want to rely on a lot of footage from the film or even music from the film, even though we will have to pay for some things. But essentially, we still want to create things in the same vein. So we've got a bit more free reign rather than having to worry about, God, how much is that going to cost for this and that. It wouldn't make any sense with the length of the documentary that's going to be. So it's all coming together nicely.
How many times did you watch it, Anne? Because I remember Anthony phoned me and said, "Have you seen your email?" And I'm like, "No." He says, "The trailer's ready. Download it." I'm like, "Oh, what's it like?" And he's like, "Oh, you need to see it first." And he had no emotion in his voice at all. So
Really?
because I'm pretty good at reading situations and people and, you know, moods that they're in and whatever. And I just couldn't detect anything. So I was like, "Oh God, is this good or is it bad?" Anyway, I downloaded it. And then when I saw it, I literally was filling up and I was all goose pimply. And Anthony was on the phone and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is phenomenal." And I can't believe, in honesty, and Anthony and I are very committed to our craft, but it again, pinching yourself. I had to pinch myself to think, crikey, we're behind this.
Yes.
You know, and I really do think it was great having somebody else edit the trailer, because it gave us a little objectivity. We were able to look back. We can go and say, "Oh my God, it's an amazing trailer," because we haven't edited it or anything, you know. So we can be thoroughly behind it and not sound arrogant, because it was the handiwork of Eastwood, who was phenomenal. And again, we've got, I think what's so wonderful about the team that we've got, they're artists. They're working, they're industry people, and they're artistic, and there's a collaborative effort between us all. We're constantly sharing ideas, and what, you know, one will say one thing, like Jamie provided, like she did a bit of fun with the logo and crossing the streams and stuff, and it was like, oh my God, we could do a fan art competition. So that was the next thing that, you know, we did, and now people are coming in and sending in their artwork.
Very cool.
And but again, there's this constant, you know, evolution of the documentary, from the fact that we're all kind of bouncing off each other and allowing us, and there's no there's no one-upmanship.
Yes.
Everybody just wants to be creative. We all know Anthony's the boss and we answer to what he says. And but then there's nothing new for me. But I think that trailer, we could not be prouder of it, and it just captures the essence, doesn't it, of those films?
It was very, very cool.
25, 30, 30, 37, 50, 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 90. I'm 100% sure that if you watch Monday Night Carlo, you're going to be in for a treat. You're going to learn a lot of stuff, and thank you, and thank everyone. This is a ringleader.
So I'd be very, very remiss if I didn't mention the late, great Harold Ramis. How did you find this guy?
I tell you what, he was... He really was something else. I have to say, that was a hard day. I mean, I was in the middle of doing might have been the first assembly of the cut when I found out that Harold had passed away.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could go near the doc for a couple of days, because it was like, because he's very heavy within the documentary, because he gave such an immense interview, like far longer and far more than we actually even hoped. It was amazing. And you know, again, like we're going to see Dan Aykroyd, you get quite worked up, because it's like, it was a weird time, because it was like, basically what had happened was we decided to spend a month in LA, and it's like, let's try and get all the interviews, which didn't work out that way. We have done more since, but we spent about 3 weeks in California, and then we thought we'd spend a week in New York, and there was actually, we should have been interviewing Theone Aldridge, who's the costume designer, and sadly she couldn't do it in the end, and she's passed away now, which is such a shame. But anyway, but in the end, we was like, we heard that we could interview Harold, which was amazing, but it would have to be in Chicago. Was going to be the best place. So as it worked out, it was going to be kind of like the day after we'd land in New York. So we had to fly to New York, then get on a plane and fly to Chicago. I can't remember where we stayed now, actually, funny enough, when we was in... Oh, yeah, I do remember.
Yeah, we did say
yeah, so we to Chicago and went there, and everything about it was just like so humble. Mm. So he had this office space above a row of shops in like a suburban part of Chicago, from what I remember.
Right. And
I'm just, again, you're churning over in your head what you're going to say, what's going to be the first thing that gets said, what's it going to be like.
Yes.
And you're getting yourself quite worked up. And, so you kind of go up these stairs, and you go up to this down the corridor, and you like knock on the door, and you're just kind of like there waiting. And the door just swings open, and it's Harold. He just goes, and it's the Ghostbusters, and that was it. And that was like the perfect icebreaker. And it was like apart from it was like a moment of being called a Ghostbuster by a Ghostbuster was still something. But it just completely broke the ice. And he was very warm and very friendly, and got on really well with his assistant. No. And he was like telling us about stuff before we started, and he goes, oh, and showing us things on the computer. Oh, well, this is the fella that I'd based Egon off and things. And we just had this really lovely chat before, and we set the and he had a meeting. I remember that much. There was a meeting he had to go to in about an hour or so from whenever we were okay. There. And so I set up the camera and the lights and all the rest of it, and then I just remembered, like, at one point he just sort of like said, "Is this okay? I'm not talking too much." It's like, no, not at all. Not even in the slightest. It's fine. And he calls out to his assistant, just give such and such a call. Tell them I'll meet them in a couple of hours. And gave us this story. I've got a feeling the interview was about an hour and 3/4. Right. I think it may have been longer or shorter, but I've got in my head we like filmed like an hour and 3/4 or so of him, and we were there for about at least 4 hours talking to him. And it was just so not very warm, and it was just like, and he's one of those people you think I really look forward to seeing him again, because he just had that. And this is not just Egon. He's a director of like Groundhog Day and Caddyshack and all these
Analyze
Vacation, Analyze this and that and stuff. So he's just and written Animal House and all those things. So he's a massive part. I mean, probably a lot of people don't realise what a massive part he probably is in terms of like cinema history, and probably their formative years watching films, because he had his hand in a lot of stuff then. So he was just incredible. He's just someone you can't say enough. And it's just a shame that but the fact that we had like 4 hours or so with him is still very cherished as far as I was concerned. And certainly the backbone of the documentary is, he really added a lot to that in some respect.
And I think as well, and we both found that he was very candid. And he wasn't giving you answers that you necessarily wanted to hear. He was being very truthful about certain things that went on. Again, as documentarians, you don't want to just give the fluffy.
Yes.
We don't want to be scathing or look for trouble or anything like that, but we do want to tell the truth. And he was extremely honest. And I think we found this as well with the majority of the people that we interviewed. Again, comparing it to what we do on the red carpet, where a lot of these people are very much at the forefront of their careers, and they have to be careful what they say and blah blah blah. These people are in the twilight years of their careers. They've achieved pretty much everything that they really do want to achieve, and with that comes an honesty, because they have nobody to impress anymore. They're not trying to impress the next director that could possibly employ them.
Yes.
They've done everything that they want to do. Yes, they're continuing to work because they love the work, but they don't have to hide behind anything. And I think that was also very refreshing, wasn't it, Anthony? That his honesty and his warmth, man. He was just the most incredibly warm, kind, and genuine human being.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the thing, because whenever you do these things, you want the truth.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, you can't completely portray the truth, because a lot of it is a point of view anyway, and that's, part of the reason within the doc anyway is that we wanted to interview as many people as we can, and partly so you want to know about techniques and stuff, how certain things were done, and that's fact, I suppose. But then there's stories that built up around that, and everything kind of changed. Everything changed. There was a really interesting thing with the Pythons recently, and they were all in a room talking about it, and they were sort of like saying about how their memories of just different things are ever so slightly different between one person and the other. And that's what you try and do with this. You try and kind of figure out the truth of the situation, really, and how and because everyone has a story. Some of those stories weren't said on tape, which is probably for the better. But it's just to kind of like sit there and have somebody sort of like, just be quite honest, and not be sort of like, either brutal or talk out of place, but at least you think, okay, well, at least I get, I mean, you get a good understanding about what was really happening there. What, the things that happened on Ghostbusters, certainly the things that happened on Ghostbusters 2. And to have somebody who's happy to tell you about that, knowing that you're not going to try and twist it and manipulate it, which, you know, has happened in the past which has always gone on, you know, within the media, the way people, you know, with the way an editor can change things drastically.
But it was just. Sorry, Anthony.
No, go on. No.
I was just going to say, do you think that as people, they knew that they had a hit on their hands with Ghostbusters before they even made the film?
Well, Harold says that, doesn't he?
Yeah, they do. A few of them did. You know, Harold, Ivan did, and Harold does, sort of like say, you kind of like, you know, you've got something.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, and it was sort of, you know, Harold did say that, you know, yeah, he sort of like said about how easy it was, sort of like the writing of it and things like that. He said it just flowed.
It wasn't laboured.
Yeah,
I think as also with the film, you can definitely tell that they're just complete friends. You know, you can tell that there's a camaraderie in between those.
Yeah, I mean, they'd worked together, hadn't they, on sort of Saturday Night Live and all of that, and all three were from an improv background as well. So this whole bouncing off one another, is you know, that is part of the energy, isn't it, for them? And yeah.
Well, it's, you know, it's a film that it's very unrestrained. You know, at one point it was even going to be R-rated, and you know, it didn't suffer from anything that's. I mean, I don't know what the new film is going to be like, but you know, there is a weight there attached to it. It can't be just a film. This is Ghostbusters, which has now got 30 years of sort of like anticipation behind it, like Prometheus, and you know, you build up all that kind of thing, and then you come out from watching Prometheus. So, as no said on that, the better. But it was, you know, you know, like with the second film as well, for that matter. But you've got an anticipation, whereas all they were trying to do was make a good film, and that was it, and make decisions based on that, and the people involved in it, both on the creative side and the production, you know, like the producers and Ivan and things. Now they're all aiming towards the right goal. And just think, well, is this funny? Is that funny? And relying off everybody else's skills and knowledge. And I think that definitely changed, come towards the second film to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But you know, with the second one, that one is now informed by the success of the previous film and the cartoons and everything before it. And there's a lot of times that, you know, people talk about the Annie Potts, about Janine in the second film is more like the cartoon, when it was actually down to her. She didn't try and, you know, make it look more like the cartoon. That's more like actually probably wanted to do with Janine in the first place, but she actually didn't get a chance to do that in the first film because it was actually a bit rushed, as it turns out. But I just think it's just like one of those things. Without any of those anticipations, you can just go ahead and make the film you want to make. And now we're living in a completely different era of cinema, where you have franchises and everything's probably planned about 10 steps in front.
Yes.
So they do have that big. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, they've probably got, you know, 3 other films sort of like planned off the back of this next Ghostbusters films. You know, if this film's a big success, then they know where the franchise is going to go, because that's what it's all about. It isn't just about having a successful film now. It's about having like 10 successful films, whether it's a Hunger Games or a Harry Potter or something like that.
I mean, Marvel's a massive example of that.
Yes, yeah.
So going back to your documentary, guys, was there a point when you were making it when you felt as though you turned a corner and you were creating something special yourselves?
And probably for me, the moment we interviewed Ernie Hudson.
Yeah,
really?
I think so. It just because it just was one of those a moments of like, if everything goes as well as this, then we're doing all right. And
he responded also very well, hadn't he, to the questions.
Yeah, exactly. And it to a certain degree, it does add that bit of pressure, because then you think, what if this is the only decent interview that we get? But it was there was a bit of that. But, you know, I think by that point we'd already had a few other people to confirm.
Yeah.
But it gives you something physical. And and that's the big thing, is like you go from sort of like thinking about doing something to being sat there talking to a person. And once you've got that one interview done, that's it. You've done it. And no matter what happens, you've still got something. Even if that's the only interview you get, you'll still make something out of it if you really wanted to. So it is very much like that. And it's been harder to get to the point of completion. That has been a long, hard path. And and a constant juggle of, you know, and I've said before, like the day job and things, it's hard. It's really, really hard, because like to do an edit, especially now we've got 70 interviews, that's a lot of footage to kind of trawl through and construct and put into an order. And when it's, for the most part, just been me and Claire, it's really hard to do. But that was certainly a moment where you think you've got it, and thinking if this goes well, it looks nice. I'm really happy with the way the aesthetic is, and it was just like some really good questions and great answers. And it's like if it goes this well, then we're doing okay.
So now I want to move on to your Kickstarter and where people can help out, and just what's on the table to boost your Kickstarter, Anthony.
Our endearing love awaits people to donate. They can. They can go to Kickstarter. You can do a search on Kickstarter for cleaning up the town. But we've got all the links all over our website on buenoproductions.com, all over Facebook, which is facebook.com/Ghostbusters Doc. And same for Twitter and Instagram is all Ghostbusters Doc and #Ghostbusters Doc. And we've tried to make them as varied as possible. There's a couple that we want to try and implement in the last few days, which we can't talk about just yet. So
okay.
Very exciting.
But we've got you can get some Mr. Stay Puft's hands sculpted by Mr. Stay Puft himself.
Nice.
And storyboard artwork though it's like photocopies, they are actually production used photocopies of the storyboard that are from John DeCure's archive from who was the set designer, who was
nice.
an incredible man. And they come framed, so they're still up for grabs. I think we've got about 5 of those still, and I think there's 3 Stay Puft hands. And we've got producer credits, the executive producer credit we put on a week or so ago. But also, donate anything from £1 to £5,000 basically, or more if you like, for the different incentives that we've got, whether it's just your name in the credits or a poster or a physical copy of the DVD and Blu-ray, 'cause it'll be a combo pack to make sure everyone's covered. So we're just not, why mess about saying, do you want a DVD or Blu-ray? Just give them both, because one day they might have a Blu-ray and they can play it then, and the digital download.
The other thing as well that we wanted, if we were to exceed the 40,000 and get 60,000, then we would upgrade everybody to a steelbook.
Very nice.
Which is and the actual steelbook design is actually on the Kickstarter site, and again designed by the amazing Anthony's art. And when you look at it, it's class, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that we'd like to do. And again, that would come with a Blu-ray and DVD.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I think because we've got a goodie bag with lots of little, the arm patches, which a lot of Ghostbusters fans like. I'm quite looking forward to getting them done, along with the T-shirt. Actually, I'm looking forward to getting them all done. We've got all these little things that we sort of like we want to kind of put together. So there's a nice goodie bag on some of the incentives there, and premiere tickets to the Cleaning Up the Town premiere and screenings once we're at that stage.
Yeah.
But the steelbook I really, really want to do. It was just like when we started, it's like I really want to do a steelbook. It'd be amazing. But turns out it's there's not a lot of people that make them.
Right.
And so I think there might be only one place that we found that actually does the Blu-rays, all the steelbooks that you get like on HMV and stuff. So it costs a chunk of money to actually do them, as you would imagine. So that's why, and I think I can't remember how much it was. About
£7,000.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
To get, I can't remember how many copies that was for, but it's only like a certain amount of copies you can get done for, 7 or whatever is like grand. So it's quite pricey, but it was why I really wanted to try and get us to go way past what we sort of like put up on Kickstarter and stuff, because it's just like we can do all those things and make the longer cut, which I really want people to see, because we will always have that screener kind of version, which will probably be around about the 2-hour mark or just under. So you've got like at least like an hour on both films. That's what I was thinking. But I'd love to sort of like have like the longer, because it's like the original, the very first version that I'd edited, which was very, it was like dumping all the stories together, if you like. But that was like 5 hours long, and that was just on the first film. And that's fairness. There was a lot of guff in there that needed to be taken out. And then the next pass I did, it was about 4 hours. But you're dwindling it. I'm dwindling it right down now. But there's still so much information there that I'd love people to know about. And I know that, some fans, just I'd be quite happy sat there for an hour watching it. But there's others that probably would be happy to sit there for 6 hours watching every depth, a little bit of detail and stuff. So I'm hoping we can find like a happy medium, and if we get enough money, then we'll be able to do that.
I think I might, Anthony.
That's all right. Well, when you've reached one person, there we go.
Anthony, Claire, it's been an absolutely amazing chat. I very much thank you so much for coming on, taking the time out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carl. Take care.
Why not come and like the official Monday Night Carlo Facebook page, facebook.com/MNC podcast.
You've been listening to MNC. All views and opinions expressed by Carlo are all his own and do not represent any other entity.
Well, you're gonna call Ghostbusters. That's right now.